Well, welcome everyone to Journey's Happier Holidays, Intentional Indulgences. I'm Caitlin Moore, the Financial Literacy Manager, filling in for Kelly Robert as she is traveling today. And today we are featuring one of my favorite people here at UBT, and that's Sam Dozel. Dr. Sam Dozel is the Wellbeing Officer at Union Bank and Trust, acting as the company go-to for anything health and wellness. She has her doctoral degree in healthcare education, along with 2 masters focused in on exercise science and higher education. From teaching fitness classes and personal training to running analytics on healthcare claims, Sam serves to support us at UBT, and she does a really great job in her role. Sam is passionate about community, and she is an active volunteer in multiple organizations, an adjunct instructor, at Nebraska Wesleyan University, and is a business member of the Tobacco-Free Lancaster County Task Force. So thank you, Sam, for being with us today.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So Caitlin did a wonderful introduction for us, but as a reminder, my name is Sam Dolezal. I will be covering a lot of different things today, and the goal is for you to be able to take away a couple things that you can apply to both Thanksgiving, which is just in a few days, along with different things throughout the remainder of 2021 and then into 2022. So what does today look like for us? We'll start with, there's a lot of fun and festivities that happen over the next couple weeks and then into 2022, but what happens if we leave these left unchecked? So what happens if we just go out and have a wonderful time without taking into consideration the goals and aspirations that we have, or those good habits that we already have going? And then how can we really set ourselves up for success? Ultimately, we want to enjoy this holly and jolly season without letting it derail us. And then finally, ways to stay motivated during the winter months. I know that last kind of January and February were tough because we were getting into negative double-digit temperatures, very, very cold. And so how can we, still eat healthy and make good choices and exercise right, even when it is frigid outside? So what I'm going to show you next is just a picture, multiple different pictures here. And this kind of sums up the holiday season for many of us. It's beautiful outside when we have snow on the ground, but it's also that time of year when it can be icy, it can be very cold, it can be that place where like, you know what, just hanging out inside sounds like a much better option. And then on that lower picture with kind of that family setting, we spend a lot of time with others, whether that's seeing our grandkids, going and seeing family, relatives, even just doing the parties, getting out and about. But it's also a time then where our schedule kind of goes haywire. The routine that we normally have is disrupted because we have so many different events that are now happening. And then finally on the right, I feel like many of us feel like the December of each year is a time for all of those treats and goodies that we don't get the rest of the year. But it's also a time where we tend to not eat as many veggies, we tend to drink less water, and the good choices that we had going all year long kind of take a back seat while we enjoy some of these things. Again, we don't ever want to take away the joy of this season or the enjoyment that we can find during the winter months. It's really finding that balance. How can we enjoy these things without giving up the good progress or the new goals that we have set for ourselves moving forward? So the holiday festivities, they can create kind of a couple different things that we don't necessarily want to have happen. The first one is weight gain. So holiday weight gain is fairly common. And this averages out to about 1 pound between the span from November to January. There's multiple reasons that go into this. Now, I know when I first read this, I go, well, 1 pound, that's not really that big of a deal, is it? And the answer is kind of is a big deal, though, because if we do this for 20, 30, 40 years, that equates to 20, 30, 40 pounds. And so maintaining our weight during the holiday season, or at least understanding that, hey, I am going to be, enjoying these different treats, going to these different parties. How can I keep up those other good habits, such as getting enough sleep, being physically active to balance those extra calories and treats that you've been consuming? Other things that it can lead to is not enough sleep. Between traveling, the change in daylight savings time, even just the shorter hours, kind of our messed up schedule a little bit can really lead us to not get enough quality sleep. And so we're going to talk about today, how can we set up a better schedule so we can ensure that we're getting enough sleep during a time where we probably need it the most with our busy schedules. Finally, lack of physical activity. On average, we exercise the least in December. Again, usually in December, we're having all these treats, good food, great time to celebrate, but then we're not exercising. So we need to find that better balance of kind of the treats and the exercise piece, which is what we're going to talk about. Fortunately, research also shows that this number starts to improve in January. So if you know that, hey, when it gets really cold and icy outside, I really don't want to go outside and be active, that's okay. We know that as we start to get into the beginning of the next year, this number starts to return to normal. We do want to try and keep it pretty stable though during the month of December. So we're going to focus on a couple different things. So improve our eating choices and habits. We're going to start there. And then after each one of these sections, we will kind of take a short pause for any questions. Again, if you want to hold on to them until the very end, you sure can, but we will do a pause to answer questions as well. So the eating habits, the next one is increase or maintain our physical activity. Again, December doesn't have to be a time of year where we're revamping everything, but we really want to keep those good habits we have going strong. So how can we maintain our physical activity during a time of year when it's not 70 degrees and sunny outside? How can we keep those good things going? Finally, we'll talk about keeping a stable sleep schedule. Again, we're not looking to make major changes in our habits, but how can we keep the good habits we have going, or again, set ourselves up for success? So the first one, improve eating habits and choices. In a few days, most of our tables will look like this. We will have lots of different options. Different families will bring out sides. We'll have, again, multiple protein options, or maybe if you're anything like me, you order the Hy-Vee special, you get all the things, and it's just as good. But this is not normal for us the rest of the year. And so how do we take into consideration, okay, over the next few weeks and months, our normal eating habits may not be in a place where we can actively act upon them. And so really, how can we improve our eating habits or choices during this time of year so we set ourselves up for success? I wanted to jump into a couple fun facts, which again, just allow us to have a perspective. I don't necessarily like to look at these as good or bad. It is just simply a perspective of, oh, I didn't realize that part of it. The first one is our average Thanksgiving dinner. You're looking at somewhere between 3,000 to 4,500 calories with nearly 150 grams of fat. For reference, our daily recommended calories is about 2,000 and daily recommended fat is somewhere between 44 and 77 grams. Again, this essentially is just that perspective piece of, hey, your average Thanksgiving dinner is worth probably 2 to 3 days of calories, depending on what your personal calorie intake is. And then the fat can be double or even triple. It's there for perspective. This is one day out of the year. It doesn't mean that we have to say no to everything and, hey, we're going to stick to our rigid eating patterns. It's not saying that. It's saying, hey, take into consideration what you do enjoy, what goals you have set, and how we can both enjoy Thanksgiving and stick to those goals. Second fun fact is Starbucks Peppermint Mocha. I watched a great TV ad about it, how it's so wonderful. Has a whopping 54 grams of added sugar. Not the best choice for us, but again, this happens once a year. For reference, our daily limit is around 30 grams of added sugar. So again, taking into consideration, hey, if I get this drink, let's get a small one. Let's make it our only one of the week. Again, how can we make those better choices to balance out some of these holly and jolly choices as we move into our festive time of year? And then finally, last fun fact, many holiday dishes can be lightened up and contain nutritional powerhouse ingredients such as pumpkin, mushrooms, and turkey. We usually hear about how Thanksgiving dinner is more kind of like that first fun fact where, oh gosh, this is a time to really, keep all the good things going. And that is 100% the truth as well. But we have to take into consideration things like cranberries, pumpkin, turkey, mushrooms, sweet potatoes, cauliflower. Many of those things also are on our tables as well. And they contain an abundance of nutrients for us. They are good for us. And again, some of these holiday dishes can be lightened up or tweaked just a touch So we're using a little bit less added sugar, a little bit of less butter or oil, and again, adding that really good opportunity and side to your table. All right, so pop quiz. This is not a hard pop quiz, don't worry, but just kind of thinking out loud or thinking to yourself, which one are you? So for Thanksgiving, I'm either A, you're cooking for the whole clan. You are making every dish. B, you are mainly serving as the taste tester. You are not asked to make anything. You are there with your presence and you will be enjoying the festivities and the feast. C, maybe you're showing up with a side item. Maybe you're cooking and eating, doing kind of a little bit of everything. And then D, you're just showing up with a side item. You've been asked to bring one side. Now, most of us will kind of fall into one of these categories, but we're going to talk about these three. So if you're cooking for the entire crew, you are the main chef for Thanksgiving dinner. We'll talk about if you're simply requested your presence. Again, if you are just eating, you had no say in what was prepared or how it was prepared. And then if you're asked to bring a side dish. This doesn't have to go for just Thanksgiving dinner. This can go for family dinners. This can go for parties that you go to. This can go for, work Christmas party. Again, so many different options here. I even think now there's different like cookie boutiques. People are asked to bring different cookies or bars. Again, if you're asked to do that, how can we make this a little bit better option? So we'll start with, are you the one cooking? You have been asked to either bring something or you are kind of in charge of the whole thing. So really, ultimately, all of this starts in the kitchen. We know that what's on the table started in the kitchen, somebody's kitchen somewhere. So when we think about these things, let's start there. First off, find upgraded recipes for old-time favorites, such as pumpkin mousse instead of pumpkin pie. I know one of our things is corn casserole. If I cut out a little bit of the sugar, a little bit of the butter, it turns into a much better, much healthier option for us than the regular old-fashioned corn casserole. You can do this with lots of different options. So I'm kind of thinking too, most of us will have a turkey on Thanksgiving. Can you bake it? Can you roast it? Can you grill it instead of doing a fried turkey? Can you do chicken or poultry instead of red meat? Maybe you even have tofu. Maybe you have a more vegetarian main entree versus your traditional protein options. But again, find those upgraded recipes, make some of those swaps that you see fit while still, again, having that kind of holly and jolly joys and treats that we have during this time of year. Number 2, find baking substitutes such as Greek yogurt, banana, and applesauce instead of butter and oil. I have a favorite banana bread recipe and I use Greek yogurt and applesauce instead of the oil in it. And nobody knows. So don't tell anybody, but I don't use oil in it. I use that Greek yogurt and applesauce instead. It's taken me a couple times to tweak it, so I know exactly how much I need, but that's adding more nutrition, taking out a couple calories for me, and I can still enjoy one of my favorite breakfast items, which is banana bread with just a little bit of butter on it. Number 3, be untraditional. I just like this part. Who said you had to have 3 different types of pie? You can do whatever you would like for Thanksgiving. I know, again, some of us really look forward to that traditional turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, but you can think outside of the box. This is not a time where we need to be set in stone. So if you feel like, hey, I'm going to try out this new recipe or this new side, go right ahead. Huffington Post, when I was kind of looking up, what are some different things that people do for sides for Thanksgiving? The number one newest one is Brussels sprouts. So again, be untraditional. You can do whatever fits you and your family, whoever you're serving. But again, it doesn't have to be some of those more strict, rigid kind of sides and options we see normally. Number 4, splurge on whole and fresh foods instead of processed. Our favorite switch recently has been from canned mushrooms to fresh mushrooms. We use a little bit less butter. We use a little bit less salt because those fresh mushrooms have just a little bit more potent flavor. I'm not saying that the canned mushrooms are not good for you. I am saying that for us, making that switch has added that flavor that we would otherwise get from a little bit of added salt and a little bit of added butter. So if you're able to, maybe splurge on some of those higher quality, fresher products. Again, you have your fresh, frozen, canned. When we talk about nutritional value, they're pretty straight across the board. But now is the time where, maybe you get the fresh Brussels sprouts instead of the frozen ones, or maybe you get the fresh green beans instead of frozen or canned. Again, make some of these swaps. You might notice just a little bit of difference, and you might notice, hey, I really like just plain green beans when they're fresh. Shrink the added sugar is our last one. So you can cut the added sugar by 1/3 and still notice that kind of sweet product. Another thing I did with my, again, much I love banana bread, is I cut the sugar from 1.5 cups down to 1 cup. So again, made a little bit of a switch there, but I didn't recognize that it wasn't there. So cutting out that sugar, I'm not somebody who likes things super sweet anyways. And so if you're that person, you can cut out some of that added sugar. Again, do your tweaks before you have to take this anywhere. So okay, I can get away with cutting out this much sugar or this much butter, making this swap before you do take it somewhere. So you know that your final product is what you want. But again, we start in the kitchen with making these healthier swaps by building healthier, items and side dishes to put on our tables. And so there are some just kind of starting places to get those, ideas flowing for what swaps and switches you could make in your dishes to make them just a touch healthier. When we talk about specifics, if you're like, Sam, I really am looking for, specific switches, what are some things that I could do right off the bat? So 1, switch from green bean casserole to regular green beans. When we go from I call it a fluffed up side, so think that corn casserole, green bean casserole, sweet potato casserole, to just the main kind of base of that, so the green beans, corn, sweet potatoes, we're cutting out a lot of sodium, we're cutting out a lot of fat, we're cutting out a lot of unnecessary added carbs. And so when we make those switches, then we're coming up with the same kind of nutritional powerhouse that we're looking for without those added things that we probably don't really need. The same I say for sweet potato casserole. I do love my mini marshmallows on sweet potato casserole, but really don't need them. I liked baked sweet potatoes too, just as well. So making some of those switches is usually not noticed except in your waistline. So most folks aren't going to notice that, oh, there's no green bean casserole, there's just green beans, unless that's really a tried and true favorite. Go for crustless dessert options. You don't have to make things in a crust. If they set up well enough, take the example of like pumpkin pie, it will kind of form its own crust. You don't have to have the crust. I, for one, am not a fan of crust. I always like chop it off. But again, if you like crust, that's fine. If that's really your indulgence of the year, go for it. But on the same stretch, if you're like, I'm kind of the same way, I don't like crust, you can go for crustless dessert options. Most crusts are made out of refined carbs and butter. So good switch if you're like, I'm ready to cut out a couple. Opt for baked or grilled over fried. We kind of talked about that just a touch earlier. Again, you can do different protein sources, but let's go for some of those non-oil based ones that we normally would see with like frying. Ditch the calorie-laden drinks. Oh, this is one of my struggles during the holiday season is everywhere we go, people have pop. Do you want a pop? Do you want a Pepsi? Do you want a Coke? I'm like, I just want a bottle of water. And so if we're able to, really just have a pitcher of water out, a pitcher of tea out, maybe you have a pot of coffee on, again, opting for some of those low or no calorie options over the Diet Pepsi, the Diet Coke, again, kind of ditching the pop just all the way around and going for plain old H2O or the teas and coffees. Finally, start with salads. Most of us have a bread basket. I know that we have always had a bread basket. We usually start there. We're starving. We're waiting for something. And we dig into the rolls ahead of time. And by the time dinner starts, I've had 2 rolls with butter and they were both wonderful and added little nutritional value for me. And so if we're able to start with salads instead of the bread basket, again, maybe you make like an Olive Garden salad. I actually looked that up a couple of weeks ago and those Olive Garden salads are pretty easy. They're pretty straightforward. If someone doesn't like that, again, you can make adjustments as you see fit. Maybe you just do a Caesar salad. Maybe you just do a regular tossed salad. But start with that instead of the bread basket. Again, if you say, you know what, bread basket is a staple on our table, offer those whole grain options instead of more of those refined flour products instead. So that's if you're really like based in the kitchen, you are the go-to. If you've been asked to bring a side, a couple of things to take into consideration. You don't know what else is being served. So let's kind of start there. And that's what our first point is. Bring something you enjoy and can have. This is really a great tool for those with dietary concerns. If you are following a specific nutritional plan, or hey, I have to be conscious of what I eat for a specific reason, take something you can have. I just say that because a lot of times we go and we're like, oh gosh, I didn't realize that things here weren't really what I wanted. So if you take something you can have, at least you have one good option. Second, take into consideration if you want leftovers or an empty pan. I personally don't like coming home with leftovers because I probably don't need a full 9x13 for myself. And so I might just take an 8x8, or the bottom one, don't forget about the recyclable roaster pans or tins. I buy something that, hey, you just keep the rest of it. I'm good with it. I don't need to take any of this home. Maybe I'll take something else, kind of if we're swapping around. But if you are one of those folks who are like, I really don't want to leave my nice glass 9x13 or my nice Tupperware at so-and-so's house because I'm not sure if I'm going to get it back, that's a good option. Again, taking into consideration if you want to take leftovers home or not. Think simple. I know for the picky kids that I've met and had the chance of working with is that most of us like the simpler recipes. I go back to the kind of that corn casserole and sweet potato casserole, even like tater tot casserole. If we just do simple, so opting for things like roasted corn, tossed salad, homemade cranberry sauce, again, opt for the simpler recipes versus some of those, hey, we had green beans with walnuts and bacon and da 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 da. It's like, okay, let's just do green beans. Again, most people do like kind of your plain veggies, and then they can add, if they want a little bit of salt or a little bit of butter or pepper, then they can add those things on their own. So if you've been asked to bring a side, take those things into consideration. And again, who else is in the household? This one isn't on there, but I do know that we are, taking into consideration other factors such as allergies, kind of those dietary concerns for others as well. So if someone can't have peanuts, don't make something with peanuts. Not necessarily good or bad, but again, just being conscious of who else is going to be at the dinner and what you can serve that will go over well for everyone, including yourself. Now, let's say you're not in charge of any of the cooking. And now Thanksgiving dinner is here. We are at the table ready to go. So how can we improve our eating habits and choices at the table? And it actually starts before we sit down. So first one, eat a filling and nutritious breakfast. Find things that you enjoy and that will give you some sense of fullness. Most of us say, hey, I know I'm going to have a huge, dinner at 1:00, so I'm not going to eat anything all morning. Anything is better than nothing. And so if you start with a, breakfast burrito or a bowl of cereal, something is better than nothing. But let's try to skip those empty carbs, things like in donuts or coffee drinks. Reach for more of those whole grain cereals. Think like Special K, Raisin Bran. There's lots of different options out there. You could go for eggs, scrambled eggs, or easy eggs, Greek yogurt, and or fresh fruit. So there's lots of different options. Again, choose something you like, but don't go into Thanksgiving dinner on an empty stomach. Again, before we sit down, drink adequate amount of water. We don't want to sit down dehydrated and hungry. So drinking throughout the day, the night before, again, even when you're setting up a meal, sit down with a full glass of water so you're continuing to eat and drink at the same time. We aren't just eating and then going, oh gosh, I'm really thirsty. Now, you may say, Sam, I'm not a water person. And that's okay. You don't necessarily have to be a plain H2O to get in your fluids. You might find a favorite drink that doesn't have a lot of added sugar, added sweeteners. Might just be plain Jane, a little bit different. You could add lemon, lime, different citrus products. Could be added to your water to spice it up a little bit. If Sam, I'm not even like a water person at all. Again, bringing one of your products that you like. Maybe it's a LaCroix, maybe it's a sparkling water, whatever it may be. Maybe you take something that you enjoy so you know that you have something instead of the pop or drinking nothing at all. Now we're sitting at the table. What are some of your best options to get started? Fill up half of your plate with fruits and vegetables. I keep hammering on this, but it is really important. Basic veggies are the way to go. Those plain green beans, corn, peas, sweet potatoes, Brussels sprouts. You have so many options. With a little bit of salt and pepper, maybe just a touch of oil, you can really jazz them up and bring out some of their natural flavors. But as you're sitting down to eat, start with half of that plate being fruits and veggies, whatever it may be. Now, if you're like, Sam, it's corn casserole and green bean casserole, those are better options to fill up your plate than with pumpkin pie. I will just throw that one out there. I would rather see your plate filled up with those veggie base sides versus those desserts. And then when we talk about desserts, enjoy your favorite holiday treats. Just pick one or two instead of sampling one of everything. So if you know, man, I really love these chocolate chip cookies, or I really love my aunt's pumpkin pie. Again, maybe just pick one or two versus having one of everything. I know Eli and I, we will each get a different one, and then we split that so each of us gets half. So we get a taste, but then we don't necessarily go all in on something. All right, a couple tips and tricks that I've personally implemented that have worked well for me. First one is pack a relish tray with your favorite veggies. If you have to bring a side, take a relish tray. I actually ordered a Rubbermaid relish tray with all the inserts in. You can also buy them at Dollar Tree for $1. So we've done things like bell peppers, olives, celery, carrots. I mean, kind of the works, everything and anything. I've also done them with fruits too. So with like a fruit dip, grapes, apples, oranges. Again, lots of different things in there. But you know that, hey, if you're looking for a veggie-based option, there is one there for you. When we talk about ranch dip, most of the time we use sour cream. I do half sour cream and half plain Greek yogurt. It's a little bit tangy, but again, nothing that if you didn't know it was actually there, you wouldn't notice it. Eli said, he's like, I actually like it better this way. It's just a little bit more flavorful than the plain sour cream. So relish tray is a great way to go. Number 2, making soup from your leftover holiday feast. When you get done, I don't know about any of you, but I personally don't necessarily want to eat leftovers for the next 3 days. And so we make soup, we make turkey and rice, chicken and noodle, we add all these veggies. Again, maybe just taking all your veggies and making a vegetable soup, whatever works for you. Number 3, this is a personal favorite of mine. I have a really nice water bottle that I take everywhere with me. I always know that I have water on me then, and I always know which one is mine. We have water bottles at our house, and when we have folks over and there's all these water bottles and I don't know which one is mine, I know with my nice water bottle which one is mine, and hey, keep it on me, keep it close. So I always then have water on me as well. Number 4, use your crock pot or Instant Pot for dump and go dinners. In this, I'm talking about all year long, is utilize those to the best of their ability. Use them so that you can come home to a solid meal when we get into the festive season. It can be hard to find time to cook, and it can be very easy to just go out to eat. And so using your crock pot or Instant Pot for some of those dump and go dinners, Pinterest is a great place to start, along with the internet as a whole. There's lots of great recipes out there. Number 5 is I don't like drinking cold water, not when it's -20 outside. And so I opt for hot tea instead because I know, hey, I'm probably going to drink that over the cold water that's going to just sit there. You can also do black coffee. Again, we try not to add a bunch of salt and sugar to these products, but if you need just a touch of cream or a little bit of sugar to pep it up a little bit, again, that is better than a full sugar Pepsi or the Coke or some of those other options. All right, so Thanksgiving dinner dishes are done, put away, all those good things. What happens if you overate? Now, we've probably all been in this situation before where we sat down, we enjoyed the meal, we got talking, and we didn't realize that, whoa, that was 2 platefuls, and now I feel really uncomfortable. Now, if you did overeat, don't let this derail you. This is one meal that we have taken into consideration out of all the meals we eat that day, that week, month, and year. And so taking into consideration, this is one meal. How do I go forward from this? First, we start with kind of balance the remainder of your day and week's meals. So if you did overeat at lunch, how can we kind of balance out dinner to make sure that, hey, when we start the next day, we're feeling better and we can start off on the right foot? So do that for that day and that week. Set yourself up well. So if you did overeat, then we can transition smoothly into the next couple of days and be right back on track. Try to be active with a walk, other low to moderate intensity exercise. There's tons of turkey trots on Thanksgiving, but if you're able to get out and walk a little bit, be active, that will help you kind of move through that uncomfortable stage. And again, you're saying, hey, I overate a little bit. I'll try and balance this with a little bit of activity, get me moving, maybe improve your mood just a touch. Number 3, again, when we get into winter, there's many times where we don't want to drink cold water. but it doesn't have to be cold water, but we really want to focus on getting those fluids in. So drinking plenty of water if you overeat. Again, sometimes when we overeat, that's also accompanied by salt and sugar and butter. And we want to make sure that, hey, we have plenty of fluids in us to keep everything moving smoothly. Finally, just to reiterate, this is one meal. This is not our entire day. This is not our entire week. And we don't want it to turn into, oh, well, I, really overate at lunch. Now I'm going to overeat at dinner. And the next day, well, that was one whole day. Might as well just make it the rest of the weekend. And then the weekend turns into a week, and a week turns into a month. And pretty soon we get January 1st. And we're like, wow, that was 6 weeks of just not following the eating plan that I had set up for myself. And so again, understand that this is one meal. How can we set ourselves up to move forward in a positive direction? Understanding that this is going to happen. Now, moving forward from Thanksgiving and moving kind of into December and January, and you might be over the whole cooking thing. I know at a certain point, I'm tired of doing dishes. I'm tired of doing, prep and grocery shopping. And I'm just like, let's go get a pizza. And that's not usually our best choice, but it does sometimes happen. And so when you are ready to eat out, have a ready to go meal, let's focus on a few things. First one is pick those more wholesome options. So skip the overly processed foods like the pizza and focus on whole foods such as fresh fruits, whole grains, and vegetables. Let's focus on better options. I think, for example, Chipotle, where you kind of are able to build your own, so you can exclude what you don't want and include what you do want. Maybe you go somewhere and you're like, hey, if we're going to go out to eat, I'm going to opt for something a little bit healthier. Maybe the salmon over the cheeseburger. Maybe you opt for a salad instead of the macaroni and cheese. But again, let's choose some of those more wholesome options that are less processed. Second piece is choose filling starters. When Eli and I go out to dinner, we really like things like mini tacos and mozzarella sticks. And those are kind of hard on our waistlines. So when we choose filling starters, let's think more like the soup and the salads versus the chips and the salsa. We will find just a little bit more nutrition in those soups and salads that probably have veggies in them, and or the lean proteins, whole grains versus the chips and salsa. And then finally, watch your portions. Restaurants are notorious for having larger than life portions. They could serve 2 to 3 people. So just keep an eye out for that. Maybe you ask the server to box up half before they bring you out your portion. Or there are many places that are doing like a pick 2. So you can do this at Panera. You get half a sandwich and then a bowl of soup or half of a salad. Great options as well to kind of mix and match a little bit. You get the best of both worlds. But again, you're keeping those portions in check. So when you're like, Sam, I'm done cooking, I just don't want to do dishes anymore, and you're ready to go out to eat, watch these few things. So I'm going to pause there. Caitlin, do you have any questions that have come through before I jump into sleep?
We have not had any questions come through.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and dive into our next one then. If you have any questions or comments about some of the things we've covered, just throw them in the chat and we'll get them at the end. But we're going to go ahead and jump into sleep. So keeping a stable sleep schedule. I'm going to show you a study. So this is a graph, and we're going to talk through this. So if we start on the left-hand side, you'll see leptin. This goes down by 18% when we get 5 hours of sleep or less, when normally we should get somewhere between 7 and 9. So leptin goes down, this decreases. Leptin helps regulate our appetite. So when we don't get enough sleep, that hormone goes down and our appetite is less regulated, which means we don't really know when we're hungry or not. All right, the next one, ghrelin. This is known as the hunger hormone. This goes up by 28%. So this is telling us, feed me, I'm hungry. This goes up. So the appetite goes down, which tells us I am or am not full, and hunger goes up. So what do you think is going to happen? When we look then to the right, hunger goes up by 24%. Appetite for highly processed food goes up by 32%. And appetite for other foods goes up by 20%. So when we don't get enough sleep, ultimately our food choices and what we pick will be impacted as well. I'm just going to let that sit there for a second to just see that this is a big kind of circle when we talk about sleep, physical activity, nutrition, because they don't operate in one bubble alone. They impact one another. So if you've ever gotten not enough sleep, And then notice the next day, man, I really like cleaned out our pantry. This is probably why in some capacity. Now let's talk about maybe why we don't get enough sleep during the kind of holiday season, winter months. And we're going to focus on travel. Now you may or may not travel, but during this time of year, our schedules kind of go out the window, whether or not we are traveling. But our fun facts are the average American charges $1,500 for their credit card during the holiday season related to travel. So this isn't gifts. This is gas. This is tickets. This is all of the things to get us from point A to point B. The busiest travel days during the year are the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, tomorrow, and then the following Sunday. So most folks are doing some sort of trek tomorrow and then Sunday. And again, they could be going a couple minutes, a couple hours, a couple states. Everyone's a little bit different, but whenever we're kind of moving and grooving, doing different things, this has the possibility to change our daily routines. And then over 50 million Americans travel for the holidays each year. So you may have somebody traveling to you, and then they stay late, you go to bed late, the next morning you got to go somewhere, you get up early. This is going to kind of influence your sleep schedule as well. So how can we stick to a stable sleep schedule? What are some things we can do right off the bat? First one is try your darndest to stick to that daily routine. And that is getting up and going to bed around the same time. Humans are creatures of habit. We do best on some sort of schedule. Now, this doesn't mean that if you get up at 10:01 every day, going to bed at 10:01. This is more of the, hey, if we're able to, kind of go to bed somewhere between 9 and 10, stick of going to bed between 9 and 10, getting up between 7 and 8. Plan accordingly. I know that I really get into this bucket at the end of the year is if we have something on Friday night, let's not plan something for Saturday morning. Or if I know that, hey, we have, a busy weekend, let's not plan something for Monday night then. Give me a chance to catch up on things. So I know that impacts my sleep along with my stress levels, being able to, again, kind of sticking to that daily routine, have a couple days, and then we have weekend plans or whatnot, or even during the week where it's, hey, let's build in a couple really normal days for us so that sleep schedule can be stable. And then if we need to go to bed a little bit earlier, a little bit later, we're able to build that in appropriately. Finally, kick the caffeine. Caffeine can keep you alert long after you've consumed it. So general rule of thumb is nothing after 3 p.m. if possible. Again, that doesn't mean they have to kick your coffee, just choose decaf. Caffeine does influence our ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. So take that all into consideration. Tips and tricks for this. Again, some things that I use, set your alarm on your phone for 30 minutes before bedtime. I actually have an alarm that goes off at 9:30 telling me, hey, you need to get ready to go to bed because you need to be in bed by 10 p.m. Take 10 to 15 minutes before bed to slow your mind. This is not scrolling on your phone, watching TV. This is reading a book, stretching, listening to music, things that don't involve a blue light. Finally, shutting down the TV, the phone. Again, that blue light can keep us alert. So we want to make sure that is off and down for at least 30 minutes before we plan to be asleep. And then if you are one of those travelers, take your pillow and blanket with you if possible. I do this and my friends always kind of joke because they're like, Sam, are you moving? I'm like, no, I just know that I sleep better with my own pillow and my own blanket. So if you know that about yourself, plan accordingly. All right, we're going to jump into exercise, but how is good sleep and exercise connected? So those of us who are active, talk about vigorous activity, then moderate, light, and then if we don't exercise at all, those with no activity didn't have as good night of sleep. And then those who exercise more or higher level of exercise, you can see that they slept better. So even from no activity to light activity, we see a pretty good jump here in the good night's sleep that they're able to have. So any sort of exercise is linked to a better night's sleep. All right, we're just going to keep rolling through this. We'll get to the being physically active piece, which is next. This is the time of year where we fortunately on a day like today, it's really nice. You might be able to go for a walk, but will shortly, good or bad, turn to ice and snow and 20-degree temperatures. So how can we keep being physically active on our calendars and schedules instead of being in hibernation mode? A couple of fun facts again to kind of start us off. Being outdoors can help lift your mood and help avoid the winter blues. So we know that being outside can be a mood booster. You actually burn more calories, specifically when it is colder. So we are both moving, being active, and then also burning calories to keep you warm. So we're doing both. So we actually burn more calories during the winter. And then being physically active can help you maintain a healthy weight. So being physically active has lots of different benefits for us. Again, like we talked about earlier, December is usually the time where we exercise the least. So how can we keep this going? And I'd be like, Sam, I know, but most winters I feel like this. I just thought this picture was great. But many of us feel this way. We don't want to be outside. It is cold. We have to bundle up. Sometimes it took more time to get bundled than I was actually outside. So how can we be physically active during the holidays and throughout the winter months? Again, while being safe and also enjoying it. So if you're one of those folks where you just can't quite make time for it, it's not really a priority, schedule it. So put it on the calendar, something. Instead of making it a chance encounter, put it on your calendar as a meeting or an important event. I know some folks, if they are going to watch a certain TV series, they put it on their iPad or their phone, whatever they have, even if they have a TV in their space, and they can only watch it if they hop on their bike or if they hop on the treadmill or if they do XYZ. But again, make it a schedule, make it important, make it a priority for you. Second, be prepared. We want to make sure we have the right tools. So footwear with good support, footwear with good tread on them, so we're able to grip the ground properly if it is icy or snowy, slick. Quality coat. We don't want to be cold. Let's dress appropriately. Hat, gloves, different layers, the boots, the shoes, socks. Again, being prepared with those right tools can help us immensely. Finding support, the accountability buddy. I have a couple gals that I walk with on a regular basis, and we call, text each other, and that's kind of then my meeting is, hey, we set up a time we were going to walk at 4:30 on this day. So we're going to go and we're going to make it happen. Finally, swap it out. Again, we get to this time of year, we want to gather, be with each other, but how can we keep our physical activity in? Switch out those coffee dates, switch out the lunch dates for a yoga class, even a walk. We've been doing more and more of this, encouraging that, hey, if you're going to meet up with somebody, do it in a physically active way. Even just, that walk sounds really simple, but it's a really great way to get started. You can still do the coffee or the lunch, but maybe start with a walk or end with a walk. Some tips and tricks, things that, again, I have done. So first, take advantage of the end of year and new year deals. If you're like, Sam, I'm not going outside, no matter how much benefit there is, I'm not going outside. I don't enjoy the outside when it is 30 degrees outside. Take advantage of these deals that many gyms and fitness facilities have going on at the end of the year and at the beginning of the year. So take a look at those and see if there's anything that fits. Again, you can use their treadmills, you can use their gyms, you can use their pools, but all great offers there. Make it something you enjoy. I have folks who tell me, I'm going to do that 5 a.m. boot camp class. I'm like, are you a morning person? And they're like, no. I'm like, may the odds be ever in your favor. Because if we don't enjoy it, or it's really kind of challenging for us, the chance of us kind of sticking with it can be just a little bit more difficult. So if you're somebody who really likes water aerobics, get that new swimsuit, make it something that you're looking forward to. If you do like walking outside, buy a new coat, get the gloves. I bought myself new gloves this year. It's like, man, I just want to kind of step it up a notch. Bring it home. Again, if you're like, Sam, I'm not going outside, not even getting in my car and drive to the gym. With so much technology, you can actually get classes from the comfort of your home. So you can buy hand weights at your Target, Walmart, many different stores carry them. You can even check out Play It Again Sports. They usually have some pretty good deals going on. But you can watch different fitness classes on your TV or your phone, iPad, so that you're able to be physically active at home. Again, finally, keeping yourself accountable. It might be a walking buddy. You may sign up to have a personal trainer at the gym. Find somebody who's going to help keep you on track. So that can be whoever is going to be supportive and help keep you going. I did want to throw in one last piece. This is about just staying safe. When we're being physically active outside, we want to make sure that while we are being physically active, that we do understand this is a time where things like frostbite happens, falls when it's icy. So how can we be conscious of those things and still be active? One, keep it close to home. So instead of going a mile out and a mile back, just make a couple blocks around your block. So if something were to happen or you get too cold, you're like, oh gosh, I lost a glove. you're able to get home fairly quickly. Make sure your phone is charged and on you. Again, we want to make sure that if something were to happen, we're able to make a phone call. So making sure that phone is charged and on you is critical. Let someone know where you're going and when. If you don't have a smartphone, or if you don't like taking it with you, just let somebody know that you're going to be gone, or write a note, hey, went on a walk, left at this time, plan to be back at XYZ time. Again, so if something does happen, then you're able to kind of know that, hey, somebody will be checking on me. I gave them some sort of direction of where it's going. Look for the clear paths. Unless you're snowshoeing or going skiing or anything, let's stick to clear paths that don't have snow, ice, debris. You might also want to check the weather. So if it's going to be really windy, again, our chance for frostbite goes up because the wind chill actually goes down. Ice, snow, again, just taking those things into consideration before we head outside. Wear reflective or bright clothing. Eli and I have too many Aussies, and they actually got reflective coats this year for winter because it does get dark early, and we can be hard to see when there's ice or snow, gets dark out. So wear reflective or bright clothing if you are going to go outside. And finally, drum roll please, is enjoy this festive time of year. It only comes around once. Again, we're always looking for that balance, but do indulge yourself just a touch because, again, this is a wonderful holly jolly time of year, and we want to make sure that we both have that balance and that happiness that comes along with it. So we will call this a wrap. I will let Caitlin toss out any questions we may have.
We don't have any questions. So thank you so much, Sam, for joining us today. I've learned a lot just watching this. So thanks so much for being with us. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate it.